Okay, welcome to Roots Revival, Interfaith, and this is our one of our many wonderful broadcasts. Today we're talking about our revolutionary times and the divine feminine, women coming to power. My name is astrologer Reverend Christina Del Rey, and I'm joined here with Reverend Danny Johnson, numerologist, and Reverend Ivy Rivera won't be attending today. So how are you doing, Danny?
I'm wonderful. Great, and I'm happy to be here with you tonight and feeling Ivy's energy. Even though she's with us in spirit, we'll feel and channel her energy too.
Awesome. Okay, so I don't know if somebody wants to give us a thumbs up that they can hear us, but that would be great if you would let us know. In the meantime, I'm going to talk a little bit about Roots Revival. So we really believe in intuition and the language of spirit, which has to do with, we believe that intuitively, spirit speaks to us through numerology, astrology, mediumship, and symbols. All right, awesome. So they can hear us. That's great. Thank you for the feedback. And we reflect upon what spirit tells us, through these symbols and through the symbolic languages. And we reflect on what's going on as a collective and what is going on for the times. So today's theme is, once again, our revolutionary times, the divine feminine, women coming to power. And this is something that we have discussed throughout. We kind of weaved it through our church services, but we kind of just want to focus on it because there's a lot going on astrologically that really supports the rise of the divine feminine right now. And 2020 was a really big year for the rise of the feminine. And basically what this is women are being asked to step up, and women are leveling up as a collective. And this has happened throughout history, and I'm not a history person. I don't know the dates or things like that, but there was, of course, women's suffrage, and there were so many times in history not that long ago when women didn't have rights, and they leveled up each time. Although maybe it wasn't looked at like a spiritual level up, it was. And there was a time not too long ago where women had to, write books under their husbands' names, and they had to they had to have a husband with them, or vouch for them to get anything done. So we've come a long way, but we're not where we need to be quite yet. The universe is pushing us to go even further. So we just ended Venus retrograde. So Venus came out of retrograde yesterday. And think in your life, and I would love it if people would comment if they feel this energy at all, and maybe how they feel it. But we're being asked to step up and become more equal with the masculine energy. We're being asked to not rely on the masculine energy for security anymore. We are coming into our own power. And we're also being asked to teach our children this, as we have to guide our children into becoming powerful women themselves. And I really think that it's our generation, 30s, 40s, that are leading this movement the most. We're kind of setting the precedent. When you look at the vice president, you look at all the things around it, there has to be someone who starts it, right? And there has to be somebody who leads, and we're just paving the way for our children. So Venus has been doing this dance with Pluto in the sky, and Pluto is all about death and rebirth and significant change. And Venus has to do with the divine feminine, has to do with feminine power. And we are breaking down those structures, and the divine feminine is rising. Now, when we talk about the divine feminine, we are largely talking about Lilith, which is, something I've mentioned here and there on the broadcast, but haven't gotten too deep into. But Lilith is a chart point in your birth chart in astrology, and you can always look this up on, I believe, astro.com. You can always find your Lilith there. But Lilith is the divine feminine voice, but she's also rebellion. And she's rebellion on quite a few, maybe like not so comfortable topics, because what Lilith represents is a rebellion against the conditioning that women have had up until now. So, women are supposed to be submissive, or, maybe submissive is a harsh word to say, but, women are supposed to be a certain way. And they are supposed to, be reserved, and they're supposed to have it together. And society looks at women a certain way, and if you don't act in that way, you're looked down upon. So it's like a fine line. But Lilith was actually, and this is how the story goes. The legend, the story really goes that Adam and Lilith were before Adam and Eve, and Lilith really refused to be submissive to Adam, and she ran off screaming to the Red Sea, and she refused that subservience and demanded equality. And Adam really wasn't about it, and she wasn't coming back. So then Eve was created, to make a long story short, and Eve was submissive. So now I think that we are kind of we're kind of like, we're getting our Lilith back, let's say. We're kind of done with Eve for the most part. And we're looking at sexual freedom, equality. We're looking at rebellion, spirit, feminine desire, things that people look at, and they think that women are supposed to be conservative and, quiet and supportive. And there might be we might be all those things, but we also have a voice. We also have, we have truths that we need to come out, and we need to speak for ourselves. And there are some things, we need to empower ourselves. And, there was a whole movement. There was a time not too long in history where women just had to get married and have babies, and they didn't even have a say in how many babies that they had, right? But birth control has led us to, having a say in that. That's empowered us. We can decide how many children we want to have. But women need to, have it more all out on the table now. We need to discuss these things openly. And we have to be an equal participant in these things. So, we do still teach girls to be obedient and respectful, which, in certain cases, that's good. But respect isn't only listening to people. Respect is also listening to yourself as well. And we have to teach our children that, and listening to our intuition, because spirit does speak to us through symbolic languages. And we need to teach our children to listen to those. So, some questions that you can ask yourself if you're feeling this, because this energy that we've been going through for a good chunk of January, we've been reevaluating our values. We've been reevaluating our voice, our power in our voice, what we value in relationships, what do we value in our life, and how are we going to make those changes? How are we going to be different? How are we going to be more true to ourselves and our voice? So you might want to ask yourself, where are you strong and independent? Where do you need to become more strong and independent? Where are you maybe you are reliant somewhere where you shouldn't be, where you should be having a voice? Where are you representing yourself as a goddess? Okay, because you are, the divine feminine is a goddess energy. It's not a male female thing, it's an energy. So, where are you representing yourself as a goddess? And how are you seen in the presence of your sexual power? It's very easy for women to be seen. If a woman is not conservative, she's seen as a wild woman or rebellious. But we women also need to demand equality. We need to assert our power, and part of that is sexual empowerment, unsuppressed. Men get to be a lot more unsuppressed than women do. It's much more acceptable for them. And these are uncomfortable things. These are not always the most comfortable things to talk about, but these are things that are going to come up. And don't forget, for the youth as well. I have 2 daughters. Ivy has girls as well. I'm sure many of you out there have girls, and for boys too. How boys should be interacting with females, and also even same-sex relationships as well. You have to look at the goddess energy, the masculine energy, and how that is all playing out. So honoring, thinking about how you're going to honor your voice, how you're going to honor your goddess energy, your divine feminine, and how are you going to be seen as equal? What are you going to change in your life so that you can level up and be your most authentic self moving forward? Okay, so I'm excited that we do have some comments in there, so we'll get to those soon, but please post comments or questions, anything that that pertains to this topic. What is on your mind, Danny, when we talk about this?
Well, I love you bringing up Lilith, and I know that we've had conversations about Lilith, and I didn't realize that she was the woman that preceded Eve, and so that, and knowing her story is so empowering. Like, it is knowing that energetically that she is with us, like she is a part of us, and that is just phenomenal. I'm really grateful to be able to have this space and conversation with you in our sermon tonight, because with us as women, very often, and I think, and you've kind of raised this as well, where how we are expected, how women are expected to show up, and how we are expected to move and navigate through the world, and how we're expected to compartmentalize ourselves, and like how we're expected to be one way or one dimensional, or maybe even, God forbid, 2-dimensional. But like, we're strong and we're gentle and we're courageous and we're assertive and we're all of these amazing things brought together in the most beautiful and perfect way. And especially at this moment, and this feels like the past couple of years and months leading up to where we are right now, it's like us being able to redefine what strength means. Like, strength is not just defined in one way. It's not just how women are able to carry and hold so much and be able to nurture and uphold the world, which is what we really do. But strength is also us affirming our purpose and why we came here. And just as every other human that comes to Earth, we all promised God that we would do work before we got here, and the work that we are meant to do as women is no less important than any other gender, than men, or anybody who is gender neutral or gender fluid. Like, we are deserving of the right to be able to completely live in our purpose and actualize the work and fulfill the work that we promised God that we would do before we got here. And sometimes we're expected to give up that purpose or make sacrifice. Well, there are always sacrifices. Sacrifice is a part of the human condition, but almost to the point of not fulfilling the work that we're meant to do. And so then we then have to reincarnate to then finish the work that we didn't do in this lifetime. That's unfair to us. Like, why should we have to be the ones to do that in for the sake of social structures that tell us that we have to? That's just unfair. And that is where it feels like where some of this divine feminine energy, where the space that we're in. And I so appreciate you lifting up how women have always been the architect of social movements since the beginning of time, like in just about every space that we can think of, like even thinking about like in Cuba, like the Federation of Cuban Women, like they are like Vilma Espin, who fought alongside Fidel Castro and Raul Castro. Like these women are brilliant and powerful and phenomenal. And like even with the Black Panther Party in the 60s, like Angela Davis and Kathleen Cleaver, really brilliant, intuitive women who really set the stage and who were not able to, as a result of the patriarchy, it's like the combination of patriarchy and racism at the time, were not able to really live in the fullness of their brilliance and not able to take full credit for the work that they've done. And God forbid if they were to step forward and say, which they did, you know, this is who I am, this is what I brought to the table, then it is, of course, adjectives like, you know, aggressive or, you know, those type of adjectives which are unfair and really don't accurately describe who these phenomenal women are. And like even like as of right now, so you know, Christina and I, the Ivy League Psychic Academy, we are based near Buffalo, New York. The Ivy League Psychic Academy is based in Dunkirk, about an hour and a half, 2 hours out of Buffalo, but we're essentially located in Buffalo. And shout out to Buffalo, because here we unionize the very first Starbucks in the country. And we think about unionizing, that was like the United Farm Workers, like Cesar Chavez. But then we had like Dolores Huerta, who is brilliant, who was like the woman in California standing outside of stores asking people not to buy grapes so that like the movement could take shape. And she is, I mean, a powerhouse. And shout out to Luisa Fletcher Pacheco here in Buffalo, who is an organizer and just who has been flipping things for a long time. And whose divine feminine energy in relationship building and bringing people along with us has allowed for a lot of this work to take place. So the wonderful thing about these women is just not the fact that it's a fact that they existed and they give us a blueprint for how we as the divine feminine right now are able to pick up this mantle. But the beautiful thing is they are our ancestors as well, just because, you know, they don't have to be our blood ancestors to be ours. We don't have to be in their bloodline to claim them. And as we are doing this work and as we're growing into and living in the space that we're meant to, we can always call upon them, like invite them in, invite Dolores Huerta, invite Angela Davis, forgive me, she's not an ancestor, she's very much still with us, and so is Kathleen Cleaver. But those who have crossed over, inviting them into these spaces and asking them to share their wisdom with us energetically, and they are ours. And we never have to feel as though we have to do this alone in any way. And the thing is, even though these women were prolific, they very much were dealing with, as we are, you know, patriarchy that was so steeped and so like ingrained in everyday life that to even think about stepping forward, even thinking about owning one's power was just really looked down upon. And it was, and women unfortunately were punished both literally and often excluded from spaces where they deserve to be. And Reverend Christina, I so appreciate you lifting up how it is within any social movement, it can't just be the folks who are fighting for equality or whose lives will be most directly affected by that particular aspect of equality that need to come forward. It's everybody. When it comes to social movement and social change, it's always a numbers game. And like with Dr. King, when he invited everybody, he invited Christians and folks who are Jewish and who are like of every race and ethnicity. He invited them not just because of inclusivity, but he knew that it's a numbers game. Like there's no way that just one group of people is able to change a system. So when it comes to patriarchy and sexism, we need men to step forward and be willing to risk their privilege and be willing to kind of take some flack for it and some backlash for it. Like that's what solidarity is. Solidarity is standing, or I don't want to say, but being with and being alongside folks whose struggles may not mirror yours, but are important. And this is men, both cisgendered men and trans men. So I've had some conversations with some trans men who realize that when they transition from female to male, woman to man, in terms of that transition, they then realize that they now have male privilege. And that was probably like the last thing from their mind. Like that was the last thing that they would have expected, that they now have this male privilege, but they have it. And even in, this is where it's like that solidarity and being in community with each other, you know, we being in solidarity with our trans siblings, and our trans siblings, when they have that male privilege, standing in that space and that gap for women, again, both cisgender and trans women as well. And even those who are gender fluid, if they don't necessarily identify one particular gender, still join in and be with us. With this divine feminine energy as well, Reverend Christina, I so appreciate how you lifted up how these are energies that have been with us from the beginning of time. And it's interesting how we sometimes either quotes or memes are sent to us at a particular moment. And there was one that was sent today, and I know, and I've never seen this meme before, so I know it's meant for us today. And Mary Magdalene in the Bible, like she is one of my favorite people one of my favorite people. I don't care how she's described, as a sex worker, as a businesswoman, I don't care how she's described, she's forever one of my favorite people. And it's interesting, there is this quote from Kina Kumarshian, and I hope that I am pronouncing her name properly, but her quote reads, "Mary Magdalene's courage to defy such an unflinching patriarchal societal structure at the expense of letting go of everything is inspiring, one that transcends time and culture." So it's like what she dealt with then, we are able to benefit from now. And it's just like in terms of that story of the resurrection, when Jesus resurrected, the very first person that he revealed himself to was Mary Magdalene, the person who was excluded and the one who was often demonized. She was the person that he trusted the most. And so that is where that solidarity can be so insignificant. With this divine feminine energy as well, like with like the Yoruba and like Santeria, you've got like Yemaya, like the mother of all mothers, and we have Oshun, who is the Orisha of the sweet waters, and Oya, who is like the Orisha of the hurricanes. They are all warriors, yet when they fight, they don't necessarily fight with brute force. They fight with intellect, they fight with intuition, they are gentle often when they approach. It's interesting because in terms of being a warrior, it's interesting because Oshun, when there were wars that were taking place, she was the Orisha, the warrior, who would go into battle with a drum and her honey, and with her joy. And like the other Orisha were just like, what are you doing? How do you expect to fight back against these, armed warriors? Like, how do you expect to do that? And she said, I've got this. And she took her drum and her honey, and she elicited joy, and she drummed and she danced and she enjoyed herself. And she literally led like some of the opposing warriors out of where they were, simply because of how she was, I want to say alluring, but not necessarily in a completely sexual way, but more so it's that spirit of joy that's intoxicating. So she got what she wanted, and that was how she fought. So fighting doesn't always have to mean with brute force. It can, because, you know, they would get down when they needed to, but that is how they were. Also, with our dear Pastor Ivy, she's a reverend and a pastor, but I always want to respect her being pastor. With Pastor Ivy being Taino, when thinking about Adabe, who is like the mother of all gods and who is the nurturer of everything and everyone, it is her energy. She was the most powerful, if I'm not mistaken. And Reverend Pastor Ivy can, I invite her to correct us when she is able to join us. But I believe it's Adabe who is like the most powerful of all the deities in Taino, in the Taino I want to say, I don't want to say mythology, that might not be the right word, but of all of I think they're called Zemi, of all of the gods and goddesses, she was the most powerful. And then Wabanex, who was the owner of the hurricanes, and she was nothing to mess with. And when she was angered, hurricanes were how they showed anger, and that her power was magnificent and is magnificent. I want to say was, because she still is. These beautiful energies are forever with us. So we're never alone in terms of this divine feminine. We're not meant to fight these battles by ourselves. These are energies that have been with us forever and ever. And we are grateful for the stories that have been passed down from generation to generation, and grateful for those who are in spirit who are able to inspire us and share their ancestral wisdom with us.
I love all those examples. Those are amazing. I think that, like you said, like Mary Magdalene, or, ones that are not with us here, I think it's important that we honor that they're sort of setting up the energetic footprint for us to, follow that. Like just because they're gone, they left their mark energetically, so we can kind of slide into that energy. So that's just so important. And I think too, like I was thinking of Malala too, and how, what a symbol she is for this, this culture, or this time period, this, I don't know, I'm at a loss for word. Mercury's in retrograde, but this group of children, this group of youth can connect with her story. So there are people who are energetically, right now, making that energetic footprint so that others can follow and others can lead. And that strong, fiery spirit is within all of us. We just have to find it. I mean, it was only a few years ago that I was, just a suburban housewife, just kind of doing what I was supposed to do, like what I was, not questioning things. And things can change really quickly when you find out that, that your things are not as they seem. And you can be victimized very quickly by that uneven, out of balance masculine energy. And it's really up to us. And I know that because it's up to us to turn that around for the next generation and follow the footsteps of the women that came before us, or the women that are there now. And, we've heard in the past all the time that behind every good man was a good woman, right? And people used to say that. But now that divine energy, male or female, or, whatever gender, we're taking that energy and we're pulling it out from behind the curtain now. And it's no longer hidden. And there was a time for that. There was a time in survival that we needed the women to be the caretakers and have children and be the supporter. But now it has gotten out of balance. The patriarchal energy is too far out of balance, which is why we need to bring up the divine energy, the divine feminine, to even out, and to survive in the future, really, because we won't survive if we keep going the way that we are. So, raising your women to embrace their individuality, and their men to support that, and the masculine and the feminine in each person, not just male or female. it's okay for, for people to decide they don't want to have children. That's all right. That's a choice now. And I think that, women who speak up and women who, don't always follow what they're supposed to are labeled bitch. And this is something I've struggled with because I'm like, well, I'm a nice person. Like, I don't want to be called that. But you know what? If that's what I have to harness to get my point across, then that's what I have to do. So there is, I have to embrace that warrior spirit. I have to embrace that strong, fiery spirit within me and make peace with it. And if people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. And that is not my concern. But I do appreciate all of that. And I see that we have a lot of comments. I don't know. What more words do you have for us, Danny?
I so appreciate you lifting up how the apology, like women sometimes we're often like conditioned to apologize for either having succeeded or we have to qualify it, or sometimes feeling as though it is our responsibility to temper our drive or how tenacious we can be in order to make sure that we're not like outdoing anybody who we might be in relationship with, whether and again, and I still appreciate you lifting up like whether it is some regardless of the person's gender, but it is like for women it's like it is our God-given right to be able to live to the fullness of our capacity, of our capabilities. And it is and young ones are watching, whether they say it or not. It's like they're watching, and the affirmation from us to live in the fullness of who we are, it's something that will stick with us. And there are women who, when I was younger, some of the women in my family, they are really strong. They were, and some of them are now ancestors. And there were moments when I didn't quite understand the why behind when they said certain things, but now that I'm older, I get it. And I'm grateful for that example. And we all deserve that.
Yeah, I even think about like my grandma. She had to raise her children because her husband had died. And because she was in a man's society, in order for her to get anything, she really had to be strong and fiery, and kind of a pain because, she was seen as a woman who didn't have a husband and she had to raise these kids. And, I guess at the time I didn't appreciate it, but I appreciate that more now that she was harnessing that divine energy, that warrior spirit that we all need to, we need to stop standing and looking pretty or standing and holding back. And we really need to bring what we're meant to do here forward. And that doesn't mean that we're getting rid of men or anything like crazy like that. It's just that we have to come into our power and meet the men, at an equal level. And, there's so much out of balance right now that this topic has to come up more and more. It has to be discussed more. It has to be put into the schools. It has to be honored. We just can't keep going the way that we are going. Because we just, we have to make that energetic footprint for the next generation. That we can't be victimized anymore. We can't allow ourselves to be victims. We have to be warriors. So I guess that maybe that's kind of what we're trying to say here today is that, we're going to find your Lilith energy, find where you need to be that warrior and bring that forth. And, this topic will come up many times. I have no doubt in our years at Roots Revival. And I'm sure Pastor Ivy has a lot to say on it as well. We were at dinner the other night and we were realizing, how much, how empowering it is to have your finances set and, know that you built it and, and that everything is secure and that you're not depending on anybody else. And that is just something that's really hard for women to do. in today's day and age, and always has been, but we now have the tools to do it. It's just we need more support in the world for it. And, I mean, you're an independent woman yourself. So, you know what it's like, but, to not be dependent on anybody else and to have something to call your own, and then to be able to come from that place is a totally different place than somebody who's coming from, well, I have to be careful that I don't upset this person or that person because I depend on that for my livelihood. You know what I mean? So I think, because we're older, we understand that now, but it's also our responsibility to teach it as well. So very, very interesting discussion. I'm not sure if we're supposed to I think we should probably go to questions soon. I'm not sure if we can put them up or not. Or if I should just go through them.
Yeah. And then for prayer requests as well.
We want prayer requests, so we can get to that at the end. All right, I'm just going to kind of scroll back up here. Okay, so Jill Marie says, when my daughter was little, my family used to try to tell me to raise a princess, and I was raising a warrior. It's funny because my first daughter, is anything but a princess. But when I had her, I really thought in my mind I was having a princess. And boy, when she showed me that she was not a princess but a warrior, I was like, holy moly, what did I do here? And I have to say, and I wrote her birthday is coming up, so I wrote her a birthday letter today. And I even said in the letter that I was forever changed the moment you were born, and that, you taught me the most important lessons in my life, because, here I was like, oh, I'm just going to have a princess. It'll be great. She'll dance. It'll be wonderful. And she came out like, oh, hell no. And I was like, and I didn't know that energy before. I had a sister, and we were, like she is a warrior. She plays field hockey, and she's strong, and she's just nothing like me, and I love every minute of it, So, yeah, I get that. Like raising a warrior when I didn't know I was going to raise a warrior, that has been interesting. But my most valuable lessons have been taught to me through my children and their resilience and their intelligence and all the special things about them. So I get that on a very deep level. Jill also says they tried to wipe Lilith's story. Yeah, like nobody's ever heard that Lilith story before. When Lilith because the actual story is that Lilith was supposed to have sex with Adam in the submissive position underneath him. And she refused because she said, well, I am not unequal to you. So then when she refused, she ran to the sea and she screamed, and she actually ended up cursing like childbirth. And it's one of the reasons, or one of the stories behind why childbirth is so painful. But she's painted as a demon because her strength scares the patriarchy. And oh, Jill, that is so true. Like, it's very scary for anybody that, buys into the patriarchy, which is really society and what society tells us to do. Very scary to have a woman that will not fit in that mold and will do her own thing. Right, Danny?
Absolutely. With the way that you described raising your daughter and meeting your daughter and realizing who she is, I so appreciate and connect with you on that, because I remember when I was little, I remember being in New Orleans, and there was this big jungle gym, this huge jungle gym, and I would crawl to the top of it, and Mom would just say, oh my gosh, is she going to be okay? And my dad just like, let her be, let her go. Dad's also a Leo. He knows he's got a fiery heart as well. And it's like, you just got to let her be. Don't be scared. Let her go. And grateful for her knowing that it's just, and plus my expression number being 5, freedom is essential. Freedom is everything. That is, I so appreciate and love the fact that you poured into your daughter and let her know that she is perfect as she is. And Jill, describing how you're raising a warrior, 1000%, because I'm sorry, we do it better. We just do.
That's right. Well, and I tell you this because, I do astrology and I study astrology. So my daughter's chart, my first daughter, her moon, so the moon describes your mom in your chart, and her moon was in Aries. And that is the warrior, the sign of the warrior. And I was like, I am not what is this? And I would look at it and I'd be like, she's not a warrior mom. I'm just a mom, and boy, did that really come true. You know what I mean? It's really amazing now, because I used to always look at that and be like, it's got to be wrong, and as we know, none of that stuff is wrong. but it's almost like she had to teach me to be a warrior so I could be a warrior, so I could pave the path for her true self to come forward. So it's it's very interesting. But yeah, I was like, oh boy, I have some learning to do. And let me tell you, I learn every day. Go ahead.
Oh, that is beautiful how you two taught each other on this journey, how it's a back and forth learning and teaching experience between the both of you. How beautiful is that?
Yeah, I mean, and it's like I said, she does everything that I never did, and I love it, and I support it, and I'm just on this journey to learn with her. It's great. Both of my children, but she's been the most it was the most shocking, perhaps, reality check, because when I had her, Saturn was in my sign, and when Saturn goes through your sign, you got lessons, and boy, did I have lessons. Andrea says, it's interesting because Mary actually had her own disciples, but no one ever discussed that. So I don't know. What do you think of that, Danny? They hit a lot of information.
They really did. That is the fact that she absolutely had her own disciples and that she nurtured and uplifted. That is something that is, it's unfortunate because she is painted in this one-dimensional way, but she elicited trust. And when Jesus said, Mary, you love much, when she washed his feet with her hair, he realized the power of her love, and not just sappy love, but the power of love being the most, us being, Leos being, love being the most powerful force in all of the universe, and it flowed through her and she embraced it. And the fact that she was able to inspire disciples and teach them is something that it's almost criminal. The fact that that's not lifted up, and it's not as well.
Absolutely, because that just makes me think to myself that love and women are often looked at as weakness, but love is so powerful, and women know that. And the divine feminine is not without that love. That is part of our power. That's a huge, huge part of our power. Good. So really good point. Chicken Mama says, wow, great teaching. I'm so loving this. Oh, I'm glad that you're connecting. It's just so important. It is. Chicken Mama also says, and yes, go Buffalo. We are one of a kind in this town. That's right. Absolutely. Jill Marie says, The Women Who Run with the Wolves is a great book on this topic. Have you read that, Danny? I haven't read that.
Actually, yeah, I think we may have, I appreciate Jill for lifting that up. I think we may have mentioned it in one of our sermons as well. And she just brings so much to the forefront. She describes how when wolves are in their broken pieces, how the magic doesn't work to bring it to its fullness until all of the pieces are there together. So it's just so that's the concept of Reiki and astrology and numerology and all of the ways that we connect with spirit, us being able to understand and get to the core of who we are. When all those pieces are brought together and brought in one space, then that is when we're able to come into our full wholeness. And Jill, I appreciate you lifting that up, as this book up as well, because she describes how as as women, sometimes when we are frustrated or when we're overwhelmed, we're conditioned and taught to power through, force through, just, take no time for self. But in this particular book, the author describes how wrap ourselves in a blanket, wrap ourselves in comfort, and allow for ourselves to breathe and allow for the inspiration and creativity to come back to ourselves. It's yeah. Thank you so much, Joe, for lifting that up.
Yeah, I love that because I even think like, there's so many pieces. Like women are very complex beings, and women in their highest form bring healing. And even in their, even being a warrior and all of that, like we bring healing, and we bring sexual healing, and we bring loving healing, and we bring caring. We have all these facets that come together. So very, very interesting. Andrea says, yes, it's okay for women to be aggressive. Absolutely. And, that's something that I have really struggled with because I am an introverted person. And even though I'm a Leo, and it is difficult for me to be assertive and aggressive. It's something I struggle with on a daily basis. But the freer, like thankfully, God and all, spirit and all its wisdom puts you through the right transits at the right times. And when you go through Uranus transits, which all of my fixed signs right now are going through, interestingly enough, we're all fixed signs in this house, but my Leos, Scorpios, Taurus, and Aquarius are all going through major breaking free of constraints. So part of the Uranus transits that, the fixed signs are going through right now has to do with becoming more aggressive, using your voice, coming into that power. Male or female doesn't matter, but you're being broken free. And I have to say, like, that thank God for transits. Thank God for those, maybe these are difficult times that we're going through, but they're also what sets us free and allows us to come into our more authentic self as well. And I know that has been big for me this year. And the societal conditioning, when you have a Uranus transit, it almost like goes out the window because you're like, you know what? I don't care anymore. I care what society told me. I'm doing me. And that's it, so it's very freeing. It's very liberating. So I know, Danny, you as a Leo probably feel that. And I think we said you're probably going to have some of that coming up. And, my Scorpios, my Aquariuses, Tauruses are definitely feeling that too. Chicken Mama said, bam, yes. And Jill says, the narrative needs to change. Men are leaders. Women are bossy. So true, right? Men take charge. Women are bitchy or difficult or etc. Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I am guilty of thinking those things as well, and using those labels too. And I think that we can raise that divine feminine power so that we don't have to be so bitchy to get things across. You know what I mean? And with the support of the male power and coming together, I think that we can heal that. But yes, unfortunately, there are times when we have to be that quote unquote bitchy or difficult woman. It's very true. And Andrea says, yep, I agree with Jill. When men get rude, they are considered assertive. But if a woman does it, she's being considered a bitch or too aggressive. Absolutely. What did they always say? Like women should be seen, not heard, or, so yeah, we're not doing that anymore. And we are embracing our Lilith now. So, look out. But, we need that to heal the world because otherwise we're not going to make it. Any comments, Danny?
Oh, excuse me. That the ways I completely agree with Andrea and Jill's statements in relation to what you were sharing before as well about like women being considered the B word, being a bitch. as opposed to men who are seen as go-getters and driven. And the thing is, it's unfortunately, it comes from both men and women,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just, unfortunately, men who criticize women for being this way. Sometimes it is other women who, and I've been guilty of it myself as well, where, let's just wait for our turn to come. Let's just, let the men, excuse me, take the lead, and then we can, you know, be of support. And it's kind of like that concept of like being a helpmate or helpmeet is something that is often ingrained into us as well. But I mean, us standing and being in our power is the most helpful thing that we can do. It's like sometimes, no matter what type of a relationship it might be, sometimes men, they do come to women or folks who don't necessarily identify as men for advice and for counsel and for ways of how to connect with intuition and for solace. So if those qualities are so essential when seeking advice, why can't they be as essential and brought to the forefront,
Mm-hmm. Yep. And last comment, but Chicken Mama says, please pray for all women who don't have the courage to stand up and be themselves. We can be whoever we want to be because it's okay to be you. And I think that that's what we have to stress with our daughters, like it's, we can't ever stay the same. We have to evolve. Things were one way for a reason in the past, and that may have worked for a while. But when the concept of leveling up is to higher the vibration, and we are trying to higher the vibration of women, and we have to, because things have gotten too out of balance. And with the node, like a lot of stuff has been going on in astrology, the nodes have just switched into North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio. So we're getting rid of the toxicity and we're moving into that more loving, earthly goddess energy, that divine feminine energy that we need to balance out so that we do make it as a society. Oh, and one last thing, Bethany says, thank you so much for the information and both of your presence. I don't know if I see too many prayer requests. Can you take a look there, Danny, and see if you see any?
Yeah, I think the only one is from Chicken Mama.
Okay. So I don't know. Any last comments, Danny? And then I don't know if you want to start prayers.
Sure. I actually really don't. Like, this is like our conversation. I'm really grateful for the conversation and for our sermon tonight. And I think my final word would just be to sometimes changing the way that we think and changing the way that we navigate. It doesn't happen overnight. And for us as women to be patient with ourselves as we are navigating through the system, because we are completely and fully ingrained, like so many expectations are placed on us and it's within us. So if at moments, if our way of thinking about something or how we react to something is not in a way that we might want to react, be patient with ourselves and be gentle with ourselves and keep going and keep trying. And because systems don't change overnight, and our values, how we operate, won't necessarily change overnight as well.
Yeah, that's our words of wisdom, because I feel like, we also have to be willing to make mistakes in our thoughts, know that nobody's perfect, and that we are on this journey of evolution, and we are on it together, so that we should support each other as much as possible. And I think that with that, we will get started with prayers. Go ahead, Danny.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Reverend Christina, for leading such a wonderful sermon and holding such beautiful space for us tonight. We ask God and Holy Spirit to be with us and to pour into anyone who might be hurting or suffering in any way. If there are joys that people are experiencing, we hope then we pray that God is with them as well, and celebrating in that spirit of love and joy. For anyone who is going through something, we pray that God reaches them and gets into those spaces where they might not necessarily share what's going on. And we ask that God live in and be in those spaces that don't necessarily come to light all of the time. We'd love to lift up Chicken Mama's prayer to please pray for all women who don't have the courage to stand up and be themselves. We can be whoever we want to be, and that is okay. And we lift up every woman who is in this moment right now, redefining who they are and knowing that there is another way, and trying to figure out how to navigate on a new path. We ask that God and the ancestors and guides and angels not only send people in their path, but allow for downloads and for messages to come in every way possible that allow for them to chart the path that aligns with the work they promised God that they would do before they got here. In God's name we pray. And I also would like to lift up Christine Wingo, who is going through some difficult things right now, and pray that God is completely with her and is fully present with her at every moment of her healing process.
And I just want to ask for healing for anybody going through COVID or, lost from COVID or, recovering from COVID, that, healing is brought to them.
In God's name we pray. Amen.
All right. Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is wonderful.
Yeah, it's a great conversation, and we will see you next week.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Reverend Christina. You did wonderfully.
Thank you, Reverend Danny. Bye.
Bye.